Well, hello. My name is Mike Squires. This is the Couchers Podcast, episode number 195. 195. And my guest, Stevic of 12 Foot Ninja. Now, a month ago, I somehow did not know what 12 Foot Ninja was. And so, for deep fans of the band, like folks who are finding me because you're fans of the band, I apologize. I might ask some naive questions or shit that you've heard before. But we talk about a lot of stuff outside of music. And that is always, not exclusively, but often is the most fun stuff to talk about for me. And typically, results in the best podcast episodes that I have. And I think this one ranks right up there because we had a great time rapping about all kinds of shit. We barely, unfortunately, talk about the new record and the process, but the new record is fucking crazy. A lot of retro synth influence, and this band is like genre, no genre barriers, even within single songs. If you're not familiar, just check it out. I'm not going to try to explain it to you. Um, you can't handle the truth. Um, but there's a record, a book, there's a computer game, a graphic novel, and Stevic mentioned that he's written a screenplay that was deemed too violent by the person who did the original Mad Max, which is, I find that to be very amusing and incredible. Jesus Christ. So, strap yourself in because this was a very fun one. I had a great time talking with Stevic. I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you are enjoying the Couches podcast or the cover songs videos that we put out semi-regularly, please support us at Patreon. Patreon.com/couchriffs. You get early looks at the videos. It's the only place that you can download the audio for these cover songs. They're not available streaming anywhere. And there's other stuff. Yeah, go check it out. Go check it out. And if you want to advertise, come on and advertise. Let's go. I would like to thank, speaking of advertisers and friends and collaborators and people who I buy stuff from on the regular, I want to thank Variety Coffee Roasters. VarietyCoffeeRoasters.com. Go check out their coffee subscription service. I drink their coffee every single morning. That's no bullshit. It's brewed. It's brewed in my kitchen, and then I drink it. It's roasted in Brooklyn. They have an awesome subscription service. Go check it out. They'll ask you some questions there on the website. They'll help you find the perfect coffee on their menu for you, and then you can select whether you want it every week, every 2 weeks, or every month. Get it every week, though. That's what you want. It's better to have too much coffee than not enough coffee. And there's no such thing as too much coffee. So, you know what I'm saying? Definitely such thing as not enough. That's also the only place you can get a Couch Riffs coffee mug. They are $10, or if you add that coffee mug to your cart, your shopping cart, buy 2 bags of coffee and use the code CouchRiffs, one word, at checkout, you get that mug for free. Free! What a deal. What a deal. So go check them out. Variety Coffee Roasters. We fucking love them. Now, thank you also to River City Guitars in Spokane, Washington. Every day is a buying day at River City Guitars. Sales.rivercityguitars@gmail.com. If you're sitting on a vintage, cool, used, boutique guitar, amp, bass, some effects pedals, whatever, they're interested. And they'll take care of you. I wouldn't send you anywhere that I wouldn't go myself, and that's the God's honest truth. So, check it out. That's also one of the only places where you can pick up one of these things It's the Marvin Guitars CN90, which I co-designed with Keith at Marvin Guitars, who we also love. So go check it out over there. Uh, let's see. Don't forget the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Otherwise, Stevic might snap his fingers and you'll be fucked.
Hey mate, how are you?
I loved your avatar.
My Thanos.
It's it's very. I mean, I'm not so optimistic about projecting myself, but that's incredible.
Yeah, it's. I would like the power to click my fingers, and I wouldn't just indiscriminately fuck half the people off. I'd want to pick them.
You know, there's an art. Yeah, I think it's funny. As a kid, did you read comics as a kid?
Yeah, a little bit, like more an adult, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I'm not all over the MCU like Origin comics or anything like that. I sort of was pretty limited in my. I read Mortal Kombat comics, Batman comics, you know, and it was just sort of higgledy piggledy. I sort of just liked the same storyline, people just killing each other. That was kind of the didn't have a lot of storyline really.
I like the MCU movies. As a kid, I bought a shitload of comics. I spent all my money on comics before I got into music,
Mm.
and I bailed on comics when all of the tie-ins came. And
You didn't dig it.
well, for a while, I really appreciated it, but after a while, I recognized it for what it was. And I was in the seventh grade. I was like 12.
Yeah.
I was like, these guys are just trying to dig me for my money. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to read, whatever. I was
Well,
never
I
a
think I think
Daredevil fan or whatever.
the movie stuff is some of the links are pretty tenuous and make you go, oh man. Like the MCU is rad apart from Captain Marvel. Like there's so many questions. Like not the fact that Captain Marvel's whatever the gender thing. It's more like you can fucking do anything. Like you could have ended the film, and then I
Right.
was busy. I had to deal with some other shit.
Yeah.
It's like what? Come on. It's just yeah. That
Well, it's
that but otherwise, I mean, I think MCU is doing it really well. I mean, I don't know about this Flashpoint thing with the multiple like it's kind of like you see the board meeting is like how do we deal with the fact that we have so many different fucking Batmans? And someone's like, well, the Flash, he can fucking go through to maybe it's and then all of a sudden you got Michael Keaton Batman interacting with Ben Affleck Batman, and I don't know. When does it stop? Is it going to be an Adam West world?
that would be awesome.
I'd love to see Christian Bale dealing with Adam West's campy, that would be
All dark.
he just wouldn't do it. It would ruin his career. Like he's a brilliant actor. I just think even he couldn't handle that. That would just be like game over.
Well,
But I hate Captain Marvel. I hate Superman. I hate anyone with like omniscient power. I like flawed characters that you can relate to. That's
well,
why
that's why
Batman's my
Batman's
favorite.
cool.
Yeah, exactly. He's my favorite because you can almost relate to him. I really like Iron Man too. I think the way they dealt with Iron Man was particularly good, and Robert Downey Jr. Like the casting in Marvel films is spectacular. Like
Yeah.
they just do such a good job, and the Guardians of the Galaxy casting, awesome. And
Spider-Man
even
was always my jam because he was a kid.
yeah, my son's like 3, and he's latched onto Spider Man. He just loves Spider Man. Um, but yeah, I think the way they've handled Chris Hemsworth and Thor has been amazing. Like, because he was an actor in a shitty soap, like a TV, it's called Home and Away, and it was just sappy crap. And he was like, his acting was terrible, and then he sort of got jacked, and Thor, he was still a bit stiff. And then I think it was Taika, the Kiwi writer director. He's
Yeah.
brought him out, and now his acting's awesome. Like I think it's really kind of working. Is this,
Did you
it's
see?
even comedic. It's somehow, yeah. Sorry,
He's pretty great, and his character has shown like pretty great
growth.
depth
Yeah,
after over through the years, right? Did you see
yeah. I
Cabin
think
in the
he's
Woods? He was in that movie. I didn't realize because I didn't know him way back then, but of course he played like the jockey meathead
yeah,
boyfriend, who was going to be the hero and just fucking bites it early,
right. Yeah, well, I mean, in Home and Away. He was kind of like, "Is it my turn to work at the diner? Like, are we gonna go surfing?" It was like there was just nothing going on. But yeah, the Thor stuff, like he's funny. I think he's really come into his own. And Jesus Christ, like he's pretty jacked. It's ridiculous.
I love when he got fat.
Yeah, that was good. I think a lot of men
It's
like
fucking
that. They were like, yeah, look at him now, pointing to their
Look,
wives. And just,
sad
yeah,
fat
you like that?
bastard.
Yeah, that was good.
Uh, so, hey, will you do me a favor?
Yeah,
Do I pronounce your name Stevic?
Stevic.
Stevic. Okay, I'm glad that I asked so I don't fuck that
It's a
up.
nickname.
Well, it's close to your birth name, isn't it?
Stephen.
How did that come? How did that happen?
Well, it came from a nerdy genesis. I Russ, the drummer, and I played the shit out of a game called Halo, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Hmm.
And we sort of developed a particular playing style. He'd run in with a shotgun, just not thinking about anything. And I would be always planning my, setting
Yeah.
traps and sniping. And I ended up just getting good at like just taking him out from miles away. And it was like, fucking Steven, like and I'm like, I think I need an Eastern European inflection, because I'm a sniper,
You need a
and
Slavic name.
as Slavic, it became kind of Stevic. Someone actually pointed out, there's sort of, what did they say? Unconscious bias to like frame all Eastern Europeans as sniper assassins, but it's like, yeah,
Eh,
maybe, but like,
you know.
if someone is going to be an excellent sniper, you expect them to be like Stevic or something. So anyway, it stuck because I'd kill him so much. He'd be like, fucking Stevic, Stevic, and then it just sort of stuck.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And my
Um,
parents are like, we shouldn't have called you Steven. Doesn't suit you.
what would they once they got to know you?
Well,
Once
they actually call me Stefanovic, which is even more crazy.
This is
And
it.
yeah, they're like, that suits you better. And it's like, my DNA is Nordic and Scottish, like 100%. There's no like, I should be called Sven, if anything.
Well, how are there so many Scots in Australia?
Well, I think it's because of the, you know, criminals, basically. Like,
It
and
just
a lot of people kind of, I don't know. My grandfather came over in a boat, when he was like 7 or something from Scotland, and that was just the norm. Irish, Scottish, a lot of those kind of places. And it's interesting because I won't name the state, but there's one particular state that's got a lot of genetic problems because of inbreeding, like
oh,
going way back to like colonial times, because the bourgeoisie wouldn't get with the commoners. So they would fuck each other. And then out of that, you get these kind of, strange genetic abnormalities because there were just so many crims and low lifes.
what?
I don't know.
You call
Like, don't fact check me on that shit. By the way,
convicts
like
crims.
criminals.
Crims for short. That's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and when I say crims, I mean they might have stolen a loaf of bread, or like,
sure.
we're not talking breaking and entering and Grand Theft Auto or anything like that. It's but you know the prisons are
And
pretty
theft horse carriage.
yeah, Grand Theft Horse something. Um, but yeah, there's an interesting backstory, and then of course you've got the whole indigenous kind of colonialist, like genocidal kind of shit that happened, and you get a lot of yeah. I mean, we're a real mixed bag. I think we're very multicultural in the sense that like anyone who's sort of Caucasian tends to come from Scotland, Ireland. You'll find that England like a lot. Um, but we also, yeah, I mean, there was a huge kind of what's the word, immigration of like Italian and Lebanese kind of in the 70s, I think, or the 60s, I think it might have been. And then
Mhm.
that kind of moved to like, a lot of Chinese people. We have heaps of Australian born Chinese. Yeah, I mean, we're all over the place. So,
I've been to Australia once, but it's been about 8 years. I was there for the Soundwave tour.
oh, sweet.
It was
Yeah, that would have been cool.
it was sweet, and what a beautiful country.
Yeah, it's a
Not
big,
blowing rainbows at you, but it was. I mean, we did a smiley face from the East Coast over to the West Coast. I think we had in Adelaide,
yep.
and of course, it's all coastal towns, but it's fucking incredible. What a beautiful, beautiful bunch of places to visit.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of folks in the States don't realize how big the country is. Like if you into
Continent.
overlays, yeah, well, yeah, if you overlays Australia and America, it's kind of this not too dissimilar, but we have the population of New York State
Right.
sort of spread out over this huge area. So yeah, it's a different vibe. So yeah, man,
Do you guys get
that's cool.
weird shit going on out in the bush?
Weird shit like UFOs.
Oh well, we can talk about UFOs. I mean, a lot of weird, like the U.S. Like I don't know. I like to think we lead the nation, we lead the world in a
Weird
lot
shit.
in like weird shit because we're pretty fucked up. Um, and I love America, but I've traveled around the world enough to know,
It's
uh,
a unique place.
I think there's a difference between loving America and having American pride. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot to love about America. Like America is the cultural epicenter of the world for pop culture, I should
for
say.
better or
Like,
worse.
yeah. But I mean, you look at like what shaped heaps of I always sort of I think it's important, like, because a lot of people diss the states because it's popular to do that, especially with the Trump era and Biden, the head sniffer and all that kind of stuff. By the
Sure.
way, Australians hate everyone, so we don't take sides. But America's created some of the greatest minds, the greatest music, the greatest athletes. You know, it's an amazing country. It's just, I think it's just the sheer fucking, it's like you're a giant cruise ship, and you've got retirees and you've got people that want to fucking party. And, like, how do you manage so many people with different objectives coming from different places?
It's like a cruise ship, but in the information age, you know, Captain Stewart is coming over the PA, but everyone's listening to a different public address, and it is fucking bananas, man, because
yeah.
people are not. We can't get on the same program, and
Well, I mean, I'm watching this Facebook thing unfold. I think this could be good. I kind of think some social media, I don't know, like Australians, I think, have a different relationship with their government. We hate the government, but we don't think they're out to kill us. Like, I think that's the difference. So I think getting some government regulation of social media and taking some responsibility of misinformation and bringing back some credibility to media outlets, uh, getting rid of the privatization, like, so you can be bought, like, that has to stop because too many people, you know, they just believe fucking bullshit. There's no critical thought a lot of the time.
everyone
So people,
claims critical thought, though. Everyone claims critical thought, and then my least favorite of all, Well, I just use common sense. Like, get the fuck out of here with common
Yeah.
sense. Common sense. Common to what?
Is
Common to
based on
your
yeah.
home, your town, your
But see,
state.
that's why I'm not against, the Tic Tac overlords coming from outer space in their little pyramid and being like, dip, 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 time to fucking sort shit out. That's how they start every conversation. Chip, chip, chip. And then they're like, all right, here's the truth. And then you know, like I said, back to my Thanos thing, I want a job as like CEO of Vaporization. I'd be I no one should give me that power, by the way, because I would, if someone is being a dick in the line at the supermarket, I'd be like, I
Poof.
wouldn't even think about it, you know. Or if they don't wave, like if I do the steering wheel wave, I've talked about this before, and I don't get one back, vaporized.
Does it take their car too? Because that would create, collateral damage with that.
I think it would just shut it down.
It would power down. Someone would
Yeah,
drive it.
it would power down. Maybe it would just sort of move to the, like there'd be a big robotic kind of docking station where all the cars from vaporized people gets recycled into furniture.
Some program, or it could get a program to go to an underserved community.
Exactly. Why not?
It could become one of these like a food delivery car.
Mm. Or
Because that
people
person's
could,
probably a dick to waiters too.
yes, fuck yeah, exactly. Waiters, or what do they call them? Servers. What's
Yeah.
the correct
Yeah,
whatever,
servers, food
and
service.
and taxi drivers. I
I
think
have very.
they need an app. Like basically in the control center where I would work, is I'd get reports, and if you get too many strikes, you get a knock on the door. Actually, maybe you don't even get a knock; it just happens. You can be vaporized remotely.
Do you watch the what's that called? It's a show that started in the UK and then of course the US.
The Office,
No, it's like the sci-fi version. It's like the
Red Dwarf,
modern the modern version of Twilight Zone.
Black
It's
Mirror.
yes. You watch that?
Yeah, I love that.
Oh.
I actually think some of those episodes were eerily accurate to what it's almost like they just notched up the volume a couple of clicks. Though, especially the one on about Instagram. They didn't say it was Instagram, but it clearly was. And where everyone had to be sort of like taking pictures of their food and like having the best life. And if you were slightly off, you'd get down rated. And the more
You're a
down
bummer.
rating you got, yeah, it was like, okay, this is interesting. Because I mean, I don't know. There's a fine line between freedom and like, I guess, abusing freedom. Like, and then how do you regulate that? And, it creates a whole bunch of interesting ethical kind of dilemmas because you want freedom, but you also can't trust people. Like, so I've been looking at Socrates and Plato. Like, these dudes are like a couple of thousand years ago were like, voting isn't a right, it's a skill. And that made me think, here's my crazy idea. If anyone's listening with the technology, I reckon democracy can work really well, but we need an algorithm that weights people's opinions based on their knowledge of the subject. So it's like you should have to sit a little test for every, you shouldn't just be able to go, oh, I'll tick that box because I can't be asked. It's like you should have to actually prove that kind of, and that will wait itself out because there'll be people that might not know anything about science but might be excellent in other areas that their opinion should be weighted higher than someone over here, or and then in the end we can agree
I
because it'll
think
even out. But that's kind of totalitarian tic tac overlord,
it is a little
micromanage.
bit. I mean, I can appreciate wanting people to care, but that's the bottom line is how do you make people care?
Vaporization.
The
That's
threat of
the
imminent
threat.
papers.
I think someone's already worked it out. It's the between the carrot and the stick. The stick motivates.
It's called TIV, threat of imminent. Oh, TEV, threat of imminent vaporization.
Yeah, it's almost like Stevic. I'm sure we could fit that. The V
Yeah.
stands for vaporization. That's why I like. That's why I kind of liked Thanos. He had a kind of a right idea, but just the wrong way. And I don't agree with the indiscriminatory. Like, just I think it should be a privilege. It's a privilege to exist. And you know, if there are consequences to being kind, like, or not being kind, what kind of world would it be? That's why I guess I like the idea of Batman and vigilantes that, like Santa, like it's like your kid and Santa. You're like, Santa's watching, you know. I
It's
suppose
like
that's
the
what religious people have.
anti-Santa,
That's what Jesus is, He's this
anti-Claus.
he's like this peeping Tom, like fucking watching you all the time.
He's a creep.
He's creepy, and he's fucking sadistic because, I mean, the emerald cockroach wasp, like, that is some serious. Do you know about that wasp?
No.
Here, this was the inspiration for Paraxis, the um the antagonist in the graphic novel. So there's this
Amazing.
wasp called the emerald cockroach wasp, and it hunts cockroaches, fucking jumps on their head like MMA style, gets some sort of probe into their brain, like and fucking injects it in this exact spot that basically paralyzes the cockroach, but makes it kind of zombified. So that the emerald wasp, like, just leads it like a dog, and it's just mindlessly following.
This
Puts
is
it
a
in a
real
little.
thing?
This is real. This is actually real.
Where does
Takes
this,
it in.
do you know where in the wasp's body is it come out like a cock? Is it like fucking its head, or is it come out of its
I think
head?
it might come out of its, like, its stinger, or it might shoot out of its face. I don't know, but I think it's its face. I'll go with face, like a fucking
None of
predator
the
mouth,
options
and
is
then,
less creepy.
yeah, it fucks it in the head, and then ejaculates in its brain, leads it into a hole, and then while it's paralyzed and can't move but still alive, it lays eggs in its abdomen, and then it closes the cave, fucks off, goes and lives its life. But meanwhile, the eggs hatch inside the cockroach, and the fucking larvae eats its internal organs in an order to preserve its life the longest, until finally they just bust out of its body and be like, and kill it.
Really?
How? Yeah, that really happens. And I was like, that's fucking crazy. Like, parasites are next level. Parasites, like, on Earth, like, we can only see parasites when people do react videos. Oh fuck, I had to get that in there. But no, like, parasites in nature, like, there's one that a fucking, like, gets into a slug, right? And then crawls into its head, and then pops out of its head and makes it look like it's got snail eyes, right? Like, they're two, like, a parasite's moving around, and then it makes the slug climb a tree, which slugs don't do, so that the bird thinks it's a snail, eats the slug, and the parasite is in the bird. And that's where it wanted to. That's how it got into the bird, through turning a slug into a fake snail and making it climb a fucking tree.
See, humans aren't as ambitious as they think.
No. Yeah, that's Jesus. He's
Uh,
doing that.
wow. Well, to be fair, Jesus was only the son of God.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
true. It's his
being the
dad.
son being the son of someone very important is a lot of responsibility and a lot
But
to
is he
live
the
up to.
son? I thought he was kind of like a clone. Like, he was made. He was the same. They were the same person.
I think here's the thing about, and I've gone through a lot of phases in my life dealing with religion, but I have enough friends who are Christians or believers and of all different kinds of religions.
Mm.
Uh, if it makes you happy and it makes you a kind person, I'm fucking for it. If it
Well,
makes you a righteous, if it makes you a righteous cock, then fuck off.
I got to tell you one joke that
All
Ricky
right, let's
Gervais, Ricky Gervais tells. I love Ricky Gervais, but this is, because I couldn't call myself an atheist. I think I'm a weak atheist. I'm like an agnostic atheist because I want to be open to the possibility. I can't definitively say there is no God,
Have you
because
done
there could be.
psychedelic drugs?
No, but that's on the to-do list.
Oh,
Um, but you never know. Like maybe God is that place that people get to. But he's got this thing about how certain disasters aren't covered by insurance because they're called acts of God.
yeah.
So, like, and then he was like, well, who determines like what God's who works that out? So he was like, he was talking
Funny
about
because
his,
our money on our money says "In God We Trust" printed on it.
yeah. Well, yeah. And he somehow he's hooked up with the insurance companies. Like he's at the top. But so I think I'll try not to fuck this up, but basically a tree falls on someone's car, like his neighbor or whatever, and it's like writes the car off, and the insurance company is like, is that covered? And they're like, oh, it could be an act of God or whatever, because it fell on the thing. And then he had this scenario where like the insurance company or whoever rings up God and it's like, do 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 do, hello, and it's like, yep, God here. And he's like, oh, I didn't think you'd pick up straight away. Pick up straight away. Did you cause that branch to fall on that person's car and fuck it up? And then God's like, oh, sounds like something I do, but let's have a look. And he's he's flicking through his little calendar and he's like, what day was it? It was like Tuesday the 17th. And he's like, Tuesday 17th, Tuesday 17th. No, that wasn't me. I was in Africa giving babies AIDS that day. And you're like, oh, but then you're like, oh, actually, yeah, that happens.
Wow. That's real. If I found out from my neighbors that and we have big trees on our property, if a tree falls and knocks out the power or falls on their car as they're driving by, kills a family,
Mm,
we're not liable.
mm.
And so I'm left holding the bag of responsibility, like, how badly do I want to maintain my trees? Like,
Yeah. Well, I was
I want to
thinking
be
my first thought
saddled.
was, why don't you you could just be creeping out at night with a saw and just give it and then go away. Just every day, couple of little fucking couple of little cuts. And then the fucking tree, if you don't like your neighbor, slowly
No, my
cut.
neighbors they're fine, but a lot of like, large branches fall in my yard every day,
But
big.
you know what? You know what's even more ominous and intimidating is if you got a long saw and you played the saw while you looked at your neighbors. You know how they're like, woo, with a bow.
Yeah.
You're just like, make sure you pick your shit off the lawn. The
uh,
saw, the fucking tree saw killer.
I love the musical saw.
Me too. It's so hard to play. It's kind of like a theremin because there's
Like,
no, but you're also bending a saw. And I mean, who the fuck came up with that idea?
have you played one?
I I've tried to play one, but it wasn't a proper one. I don't know if it was I got a saw and tried to make a noise with a shitty violin bow, and nothing happened.
Right, there's the actual musical saws.
I think yeah. I just tried to use the old one in the shed.
I'll bet that some redneck from the States did it the first time. It seems like there's a lot of.
Yeah, but it's even if it was a redneck, it's like
Rad.
they went violin bow, fucking saw, like who would think that? It's like the same person that decided to eat potatoes. Like, what the fuck's with that? Who would dig that up and go, I'm gonna eat that? Like it looks like
Great.
just a fucking piece of shit. And then imagine the first person who cooked them and went, Jesus, this is way better if you cook it.
I think I probably we learned what we can eat and what we cannot eat from animals, right?
Yeah.
You shepherding around critters and then just pay
Watching them.
attention. That's how we discovered coffee.
Really?
Yeah.
From leopards?
No, not those whatever those cats that.
Coffee leopards.
No, from goats. There's this whole
Ah,
story about dancing goats. You hear it. It's a kind of
they're
a
caffeinated.
yeah, because in Ethiopia there was this guy herding goats, and they were eating these cherries off these bushes, and they would get really like amped and agitated, and he was like, "What the fuck's going on over here?"
Imagine him telling that story. Is like 1 minute they were cool, and the next minute they were fucking everywhere, like going crazy. I couldn't control the goats.
But that's
And then
interesting. All coffee is from Ethiopia.
holy shit.
All coffee
Well, there you
originated
go.
from, you know.
That's why Cubans hate the stereotypes because it's like it's not even us.
We should probably talk about music.
Yeah,
This is
we've managed to not actually talk about
almost
anything.
anything, yeah.
Yeah.
So, full like full disclosure, a month ago, I didn't know your band,
It's all right.
and uh, I sort of dove in and was shockingly pleased and really surprised at what I discovered. And for people who are listening, who are not who you're not on their radar, um, you know, brace yourself for a strong musicality and a lot of music coming at you. The more I listened, the more I realized uh, you could if you were painted if you were in a corner, you could play all these songs on an acoustic guitar, which kind of fucked me up because it took a while for me to get there. I just
Mm.
had the catalog on repeat on my headphones at work, and when I realized that, all of a sudden everything seemed even more genius. And so I'd like to hear about your origins as a musician, how you like what first inspired you, what what drove you to the point of musicality that you are at now, and the process of composing and producing.
Okay, I'll try.
There's a lot of
Um,
questions.
yes. Uh, so do you mean me personally or the band or like,
Yeah, with the focus on you, but
okay.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to scan for the boring parts, but just hit fast forward if I'm dragging it on. But when I got into guitar when I was about 6, my parents made me ask for one for a year, so I got one when I was 7 because I'm like I want the guitar, and then I got right into an artist called Tommy Emmanuel,
Oh,
who's a Aussie, you know, Tommy. He's made a big name for himself in the US, a great acoustic guitar player. And yeah, I kind of was self-taught for a long time, like getting lessons here and there, but not ever really understanding what I was doing.
as a
Like a lot of,
7-year-old, you were really into him?
yeah, I loved it.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it was just magical to me that he could do what he could do. And yeah, I started learning his pieces when I was kind of just about start of high school. Like I started tackling his kind of Beatles arrangements and stuff, and I got to meet him and go to a sound check when I was a kid, and he was so cool. Like he just let me play his guitars at sound check, and you know, just was really encouraging and a genuinely good dude. And jump forward, we were on tour in the States, and our bus driver had just driven for a tour with Tommy and told me this story that the bus driver really wanted to watch Tommy's show, but couldn't for some family reasons or whatever. So Tommy sat in the front of the bus and did the show for him while he drove. Like just, because he's that kind of dude. And like that's
Oh.
like one of those stories that you don't, it's not it's not publicity. It's just a bloke going, what a, he did this for me, and I'm the bus
Right.
driver, and he sat up and played me the whole gig because I couldn't make it, which
How many
is just,
people would have totally filmed that and like puffed up their chest?
I don't think it's out there. He may have even been on there like solo. I don't know. But it's just, he was a really inspirational guy. So from there, I wanted to perform and I wanted to busk, but I came from a really small town, small coastal town in Victoria. And my parents thought it'd be weird if I busked because it'd be like, well, you know, like I'm begging for money or something. So my mum looked into these Stedfords. I didn't know what they were, but you had to learn classical to play. And I'm like, oh, I'll learn some classical. And then she found me this classical guitar teacher, Samantha Rainey. And yeah, she just like really honed in on my technique, and I got into kind of Villa Lobos and Brazilian. Like I really latched onto the Brazilian classical hybrid stuff where it's like a bit of bossa mixed with classical, and that kind of. And she started playing me Frank Zappa and Tom Waits and all this kind of stuff that was like, whoa, like I didn't know, music could be that. And then grunge hit, and then I got right into Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Pantera. Like I latched onto Pantera. And then someone showed me Mr. Bungle. And then I was like, okay, this is kind of what I've been looking for. Because it kind of had all of the things that I was liking, but it was showing me that you can do it all together. Because people have showed me King Crimson and Yes, and a lot of the early fusion prog kind of acts. And I was like, this is like imagination music to me. It was just sort of so free and open. And then I kind of somewhere along the line got into jazz a little bit and tried to kind of get my head around the theory, a lot more theory to kind of decode what I was doing. But as a result, I just never wrote normal songs. I always kind of wrote in the style of 12 Foot Ninja, always. And I used to think it was a problem. And then I thought I need to, just sort of embrace it. And yeah, and that's kind of where the whole concept of the story and the purpose of the music came in, because, you know, surrealism without syntax is just arbitrary nonsense. So I wanted to have kind of a world that this music could fall into and relate to, and that's kind of the genesis, I suppose.
When the songs are being written, like before you're in the studio or before you're committing them to tracks, are they written on acoustic guitar
A
and
lot of the time,
then
yeah. Yeah,
translated sectionally?
yeah, I think it's especially this last album, most of it would have been created with the harmony established. Like the acoustic guitar was, especially with Roe, he's a great acoustic player. He's an amazing acoustic arranger. I don't know if you've seen his Instagram, but he just pumps out versions of he plays like a Tommy Emmanuel style, but with any song that people throw at him. Like he just does it.
Right.
Like it's wild. But yeah, so we would kind of break it down in that bare harmonic form, and out of that, there's irresistible ideas that kind of just, we don't deliberately simplify it. It can often have a level of complexity, even with an acoustic part, and then the melody, and then, of course, the lyrics. The lyrics were kind of really important for this last album. We put them kind of as king, and then the melody had to bend to the lyric as opposed to the other way around, which is how probably most people write. But when you write that way, you often encounter this thing that a lot of songwriters don't realize, and I didn't realize for years, is you just kind of indiscriminately match syllables to notes. But when you speak, multi-syllable words aren't equal. There's stress syllables, there's primary syllables, there's secondary syllables. So your language gets diluted in the song if you just put syllables to notes. Um, and I guess I went down a rabbit hole. I taught lyric writing at a uni for 5 years and sort of understood, like I was addicted to the kind of theory behind lyric writing, because that always seemed quite like you either can do it or you can't do it, but it's just a skill like anything else. There's tools.
Do you have a
um
favorite lyricist?
Patterson.
I don't know who it is.
um he's not, what, weirdly it's not, Pat Patterson's like the guru. He teaches at Berkeley. He's written all the books and stuff. He taught John Mayer. um he's not, you wouldn't know his songs, like, no discredit to Pat. I mean, I'm probably ignorant to the world that he writes within, but it's more, he's just like this dude that decoded language. He's got like a PhD in logic and poetry or something and English, and he's put it all together, and he's just a brilliant guy. And we bring him out to Australia a couple of times a year at the uni we would that I was working at. But lyrically, I really like Jason Isbell. Like, I think, a lot of the Americana acts, the singer songwriters, that rely on their storytelling, like there's not as much grandiose production at play. There's some brilliant stuff. Paddy Larkin, Billy Joel, like
Ever get into John Prine?
John Prine. No,
Ah,
I'll write it down.
there are many songs that he's written that are real simple. Some of them are, like borderline. If you're not in the right mood, they'll feel hokey.
Mm,
A little, not really, because he's writing about real life stuff. But he's a lighthearted guy and he's funny. He died 2 years ago. But
right.
well, he was a fucking American treasure. He's worth checking out.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Absolutely.
You ever hear of
But
Bon
yeah, I mean,
Scott?
it's, sorry.
You ever hear of Bon Scott?
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of him. Um, yeah, he's kind of a national treasure.
I think he's my
Um,
favorite lyricist. People laugh at me when I say that,
yeah. Well,
but
no,
I'm like,
I wouldn't laugh at you. Like,
fuck
I think,
Bob Dylan.
yeah.
Bon
But
Scott
but
is killing it.
but see, this is the thing, right? That I reckon about lyrics is, um, people often, like, if you look at the origin of music, like, where did Western music evolve from? It was to recite prayer. It was about psalms and religious context. Secular music didn't come in until like quite a way down the line. Um, but the primary purpose was to communicate something. And even if you look at all indigenous cultures, it was about telling stories and passing information.
Right.
So it's kind of like when you go through that Baroque period, like equivalent of to me, the Baroque period is like the 60s. Like, it's like when everyone was experimenting in virtuosity and trippy shit, sort of, everyone was on opium. Um, but like, as a result of that, those art forms, you do get really interesting art and experimental shit, but you can sometimes lose the direct communication. Like, I make the Baroque period because the forms changed. There wasn't attention to form. There was a new attention on virtuosity, which
Right.
may have taken precedent over emotional content. Um, yeah, and I think with lyrics, the same thing happens. And a lot of people, when you hear their songs, they write in a way that they would never speak. And if they're talking about something authentic, like a love story or a death or something, and they start talking in this kind of pontificating quill like way, it just loses people. So when you like Bon Scott, it's because it's just meat and potatoes. He's saying it how he'd say it. And it's like you're connected to him because it's real.
Right.
Um, like, Adele, I think part of the reason why she was such a phenomenon is because it was authentic. It felt authentic. Like, when she would talk about heartbreak, for some reason, you really believed it. Um, and there are many tools at use. Like, someone like you is interesting because in the verses, they all start on the second beat. Like, and the second beat is the most insecure beat.
Right.
Imagine by Beatles, same thing. Imagine is on the second beat. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Imagine there. If it was Imagine on the first beat, it would sound like we're at a podium going Imagine. Like it's a different thing. And then she uses triplets, sorry, 16th notes, sorry to turn up to your door uninvited. And it's like anxiety. And it's like, it sounds like someone turning up at your door going, well, I don't know why I'm here, but how are you? Whatever. And then when it's like, for me, it isn't over, they add half a bar, which makes you feel unresolved, like it isn't over. There are all these amazing mechanisms at play in some of these brilliant songs that people wouldn't go, oh, I love how you extended the bar there. They just feel it. They just go, ah, shit, I
Let
believe
me
that.
interrupt you right there for 1 second. Do you do you an like do you analyze music always when you first hear it? Do you think and listen critically to music always?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's the two artists that I can zone out on. Like I listen to a lot of Hans Zimmer. Like
Uh,
that was my most listened to artist last year. Just like, and often just the same songs on repeat over and over again because they sort of start blending into your subconscious. And I really like a electronic artist that Nick put me onto, Tipper. Because it's just, I don't know, it's doing something. It's like ASMR or whatever in your brain, and it takes me out of like trying to break it down and count and um, because it is a compulsion that kind of is a bit annoying because it sort of means you can't necessarily. I think that's why I like the Americana stuff because I'm hearing someone's story like
right.
before I'm looking at like their chord progression or you know the technical or methodical aspects.
So you're not making a lot of sex playlists.
No. I just want to hear the air conditioner.
uh, that sounds fatiguing to
It,
to
dude,
to
it
listen
is.
to hear music that way.
Yeah, I
Has it
mean
always
it's
been that way since you were young when you were first sort of like
no.
charging yourself with learning these difficult compositions?
No, I think it was more like a thing. Like I'll show can I show you? Two
I would
seconds.
love, yeah. Oh,
Like when I first heard this is one of the songs when I first heard I needed to understand how that
right.
just kept going. But then when I was like broke it down, then it's like, okay, I've caught that Pokemon. I can kind of hear when that's happening in other things. And I think it was like the bark, that kind of where you've got the bass and the melody is the same
Right.
principle of where there's a melody in there's two parts going on at once. And Tommy's like, I used to think it was like, what is going on? Like this guy is a wizard. Like he's doing this multiple guitar parts, but it's just when you systematically break it down, it's just a trick basically. So yeah, I think in the start, I'm blown away by the magic of it. And then I have to kind of understand it. And then once I understand it, it's kind of like the illusion no longer has as much impact. Which is satisfying in one way because now I know, but also you
Tragic and
lose
other.
you kind of lose like, oh, okay. It's not as exciting. I think it's the same as
It's
anything
like
though.
seeing through an illusion almost, right?
Yeah. But it's the same shit as watching Jurassic Park. Like the first Jurassic Park now, people are like, oh, fake.
Oh fuck, go back and watch Star Wars, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. I remember watching Jurassic Park when it came out, and I was like, these dinosaurs look fucking real. Like it just blew my like I've been really aware of technology and my perception changing, things that I can see now. Like, and that's the thing, their tolerance for illusion is so much lower now. Like, whereas in the past it was quite high, like people could suspend disbelief quicker. Um, so I think that's kind of, I think it's actually, I've got a theory about live shows. A lot of live shows, just watching someone play isn't necessarily enough. It's not as much as it used to be, because now you can just jump on YouTube. Like, I used to have to get 2 tape decks and put my finger half down on play to slow it down so I could hear it, and then I have to tape it off someone who had it. I remember paying like 80 Australian dollars for a Mike Patton album because you just couldn't get it.
Right.
Now it's just, man, like you could learn anything if you want. Like the other day, like my dog's been killing rabbits and I'm sick of throwing their bodies in the bin. So
Right.
I'm like, I'm going to skin this thing and like cut it up, and at least I can control, like she's not going to eat the guts. I'm like, how do you skin a rabbit? I haven't skinned a rabbit. I watched a YouTube video. I was skinning a rabbit like fucking Davy Crocker in like 2 seconds. I'm like, I'm a pro at this.
This is the information age.
Yeah.
Fucking incredible. Is that Maton?
No, this is a tailor.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, me and Ro uh have a relationship with these guys. They make awesome acoustic guitars.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you like my jumper?
Is it a full jumper?
Yeah, it's a hoodie, Affliction. My mate Jose works for Affliction, and he's a legend.
He's
And
the radio guy.
yeah,
I've been on his show.
he gives me these clothes, and apparently they mean something in America, but I just like the cool clothes over here. But then I watch Tiger King, and all the motherfuckers on Tiger King are wearing. I'm like, wait a minute, hang on. Is that why some people look at me funny?
It's
But
like it's like going to Mexico and you see all the people coming back with sombreros in the bin.
yeah. I'm like, okay, but I love Jose to death, so I will wear Affliction till I die, even if people are gonna think I'm, you know, trading in exotic animals when I
You
come
know
to the
what?
States.
What people think of you is none of your business.
That's what Nick says.
I say it all the time.
Yeah,
None of my business. None of your business.
yeah, true. I reckon they make good shit. To be honest, it's always like I wear the crap. Look at these shorts.
You got a whole thing. You got the
Yeah,
whole.
like I just wear it until it disintegrates.
uh, so let's talk about Bungle for a second, because Bungle and Patton has come up.
Yeah,
That was I got that first record when it was pretty new.
self-titled Bungle album.
Yeah, the John Zorn
Yeah.
produced one, and then
Mm.
which got me onto John Zorn,
Yeah,
and
Naked City.
yeah,
It's wild, isn't it?
it's fucking bananas.
I hope
Um,
Mike Patton's okay. I don't know what's going on, but
I don't know too, but I hope so also. I think he's
mm,
a national treasure as well. A very odd national treasure.
yeah,
A treasure nevertheless. But Bungle, and those guys were young when they started getting fucking bananas.
mm,
You've heard the demos of that first record, pre
yeah,
Zorn.
yeah,
I mean, it's all there.
yeah.
You know, it's like hearing the MJ stuff before Quincy. It's like,
Mm.
wait a minute. You know, it was
And it's
already
weird that,
here.
yeah, and a lot of these that they went to the same school. A lot of, like, it's pretty weird. Like, it's a weird spontaneous human combustion level of elements coming together. Two of the guys moved to Australia, and um, yeah, Bear McKinnon played on our second EP, and he wrote, I think he wrote like Air Conditioned Nightmare, and a few of the like Mamishka Mouse Squaws and stuff from Disco Valente.
Yeah.
So it was an honor to have him on there, and I got him to do that John Zorn crazy, like dying goose sax spasticity thing that he does, and that was just, I'm like, can you do that thing, where you make the sax sound like it's, you know,
Exploding
like yeah,
and strangling at the same time.
and I was just like, I was like in my element. I'm like, wow, this is cool. He's a really really nice guy. Um, Yeah, but I agree. Mike Patton is a national treasure. And I think for anything, for just as much as his music legacy, it's his fearlessness and just resolve to not compromise or bend. And, it's been interesting to watch him kind of mellow a bit, but I can see how he would earlier on with interviews, just the whole experience was just so, like, he struggled with it so much, he just became an epic kind of smartass. But that was his way of
Sure.
kind of, dealing with it. Because it would have been hard, like the pressures on him, and all of a sudden being kind of like a pin-up dude in Faith No More, from like coming from this, you know, this other world. Like he could have quite easily been like a Brandon Boyd from Incubus kind of vibe.
Sure.
Which is, not dissing Brandon Boyd, but it's like they worked out the lead singer's kind of good looking and whatever, and then his dreads were off, and the next minute he's, shirtless and drawing himself.
Right. I saw Bungle on that first on the first. I've seen him on every album, but except for the new one. And man, they were a different kind of ferocious on that first
Well,
record.
that going back to your earlier point, watching Mr. Bungle live would take me to that magical place every time. I'd just be like standing there, just, it's like I just couldn't believe that they could pull it off. Like the whole thing, it really set the bar for me of what's possible. And um, yeah, I mean, Mr. Bungle's probably been one of my biggest teachers, like Mike Patton and Trey Spruance and Trevor Dunn and all those guys, and what they did laid a sort of template in my mind. And it's one of those things that I think I heard from a plugin company that Mike's heard 12 Foot Ninja and said we were pretty cool. I I, I don't know if that's true, because I always was so paranoid, and I'd never want him to hear it because I think he would probably find it just, you know boring or uninteresting, or not really doing. He wants to hear things pushing boundaries, and he'd probably hear it and go, oh,
Can't
it's
imagine
nothing.
that anyone would ever hear it and think boring,
Well, I
whether
don't know.
they
I
like
guess
it or not. But I mean, there's too much happening that anyone could ever approach the word boring as something to put on the table.
well, yeah, I guess I think I don't know how I'd react to Mike Patton telling me I suck. And I think he possibly would, like it's kind of, I'd love the opportunity to just chat to the guy one day, but it's rare. And I think he's just had decades of being punished by,
Right.
you know, people that come, like I remember lining up to Bungle shows, and it'd always be like people would, their identity was tied to liking that kind of music. Like they rock up looking crazy like clowns and shit. Um, and I guess you kind of like people who identify as weirdos or whatever would listen to it, and he would get that energy on. Like I remember I was standing right there, and I wanted to shake his hand, and I ended up not doing it because there was someone like trying to be all weird, and
Right.
he just wasn't into it, like, so I didn't. Yeah, it was awkward,
It's like
but
I mean, I think being in that band or being Mike Patton would be like being Bill Murray and having people constantly fucking throw Caddyshack quotes at you,
yeah,
you know? Like for the
that would
rest of
get
your
painful.
life. Oh, yeah, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's why I think he's dealt with it in his way, like with his kind of crazy humor, and pranks and um, and it's fun. It's like I heard that he was buddies with Danny DeVito, and I'm like, that makes sense. Like I could see those two sitting there just talking shit.
So around the same time you said you got into Pantera, which they carried the torch through the 90s outside of like,
Yeah.
as far as high uh profile metal, they
Mm.
were untouchable. There was Metallica who veered off the path in the 90s. Um
Yeah. I mean, for some reason, yeah, Pantera. I mean, Dimebag and Vinny, um, like the whole band, like but it's crazy that we got to hang with Vinny and meet Phil and like that. I used to draw their fucking logo on my pencil case in high school,
right.
and coming from Australia, like you've been here, um, and towns get pretty small. That's why another part of America is like it's like a fucking Narnia cupboard into your fucking dreams or whatever. Like I think the first time I went to America, Hulk Hogan was standing at the fucking airport, and I'm like, this joint is crazy.
That's kind of a perfect introduction
It
to
is,
America.
yeah, because it's like fucking hell, it's just celebrities and people, walking around everywhere. Um, yeah. So anyway, sorry, man, I keep railroading your.
No, it's great. This is great. This is we talk about kind of nothing and everything, but I will occasionally try to steer us back onto the music and to the new record. We're getting there though, slowly but
Getting
surely.
there.
So those are two pretty extreme, you know, for conventional metal. Pantera was extreme. Like
Mm,
the riffs were brutal. Vinny's drumming was just like groovy to on the next level, right? It just had
mm,
like just was deep.
yeah.
And those guys were you just couldn't fuck with them.
Mm. Well, I think Dime, his riffs had, like, I've heard guitarists talk about this Texas swagger. He had this kind of, he was like the metal Stevie Ray Vaughan or something. He just had this charisma and personality in his playing, that, Dime is Dime. And, speaking of Jose, Pantera is his ultimate favorite band, and Dime, it was like his hero. And he was special. Like he just had something that, and his melodic choices, he was able to shred, but he made that guitar sound evil. Like he was a badass. Like I remember I used to get the Pantera home videos and watch him like smoking a cigarette and then just ripping this thing and using his whammy bar. Like yeah, he captured my sort of imagination as well, as like this dude is just crazy.
Were there other bands during that time, or even, and I guess the next part of that question is going to be like more recently, that when you hear them outside of like Americana music and sort of roots songwriter music, I hate that I just said that because fucking songs are songs, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm.
Uh, are are there things that got their hooks in you and that you were drawn to for whatever, for its charisma or for its musicality or a combination of both?
Jeff Buckley was probably the other artist that I was obsessed with and still am. Like, I've probably listened to Grace, that whole album, more times than any other album. Um, yeah, and it's weird. I remember Grace because I used to. There's this program in Australia called Rage, and it's on late at night, and it's a music clip video. It's like MTV, but without the annoying hosts. It's just music videos back to back, and sometimes there's
Then
people
it's not like
program.
MTV here.
Yeah, well, it's no MTV's turned into something completely crazy now. Like it's like reality TV show central, but So you had to stay up late if you wanted to find new music videos. There wasn't the internet and YouTube, and so I'd stay up um, past midnight. And I mean, a lot of Aussies will know this game. You'd be like, if the next song sucks, I'm going to bed. Like
Right.
that's the and Jeff Buckley and Grace came on, and I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear the new Silverchair song, or I wanted to capture Sepultura. I think I was after Sepultura Ratamahata. I think that's how you pronounce it. I wanted to capture it because I'd record it. And this Jeff Buckley Grace came on, and I'm like, fuck. Yeah, I was sitting through it, and I'm like, his voice is kind of. I remember not liking it the first time I heard it. The next time I heard it, or it might have been even the third time, it's like like this is. I'm not an ethereal kind of person, but I literally felt like electric, like it was like a bolt of lightning hit me, and I was just unbelievably moved by Jeff Buckley. I was like, this dude is unbelievable. Like,
Yeah.
and it's probably one of the few times in music that I've been that struck, like where I physically felt a sensation of like, shit, something about this. His vibrato, like his timbre, like, and his chord work and the whole
His
production
guitar
is,
playing was fucking great.
yeah.
And not that many people talk about his guitar playing, and he was
Well, he was
good
the
at.
GIT or whatever it's called, the Guitar Institute.
He did?
He was a shredder. He went to the fucking Guitar
Love
Institute,
that.
and he could shred.
Yeah,
And the thing is, he didn't.
right.
That's what I so almost like the opposite of Dime. Like, Dime was all about like this just swagger and like fucking virtuosity and awesome lead work and melodic sensibility. Jeff Buckley had ability but he really chose how he let it manifest. And his sound became that kind of Fender Twin reverb laden Fender Twin with a Telecaster. That was his vibe, and his chord work, and it just blew me away. Like I just had to consume everything. And then unfortunately he fucking died. I never got to saw him play. And yeah, but that dude just left a legacy. And I mean, I did feel guilty listening to his sketches stuff because he didn't want that to necessarily be heard, but I was kind of, I had to hear it, So, and some of those songs are just brilliant as well,
I
and you could
think
really
so.
hear where they were going. Yeah.
I think
So,
so.
and I don't know, like I've spoken to a lot of Americans who didn't really know who he was. I think he was huge in Australia and like in parts of Europe. And he just, like, I presumed he was up there with like the greatest artist of all time in America. I mean, he is, but I don't know whether he publicly got that recognition. I mean,
I don't
what's
think
your
in
take?
life he achieved that, unfortunately, which is,
Mm.
I think a tragic truth for a lot of people.
Well, I heard there was a biopic. I
In the
heard that
works.
it was meant to happen, and I heard James Franco may have been on the possibility of playing Jeff Buckley.
I heard as well.
He could kind of pull it off. He's similar, you could see him kind of having that look because I read his bio or his auto, what do you call it, biography that someone else wrote, obviously, but he was a pretty, he was a pretty old school sort of artist in the sense that he was really loose and floaty, and it wasn't unusual to jump into the river with his clothes on, like
Right.
and do crazy kind of hippie, almost hippie-ish kind of shit. And he'd disappear and do all sorts of, like, he was just a free spirit. But he was a lyricist too that I'm blown away by, because he could talk about classical elements like the moon and the clouds and not sound like a cliche sort
At
of,
all.
yeah, no, it sounded like it was coming from the source, like um and I think that was he had that haunting. I liked his voice more than Tim Buckley as well. I think there was something timbrally nicer. It was a smoother
Yeah.
tone. Um, Fuck, it was good. And I remember his mum was in an interview, like he had this, he couldn't, he was just like singing like a weapon his whole life, and he couldn't understand why the kids in primary school couldn't hold a tune, and it used to frustrate him. That's what his mum said. Like he always just could sing, and he didn't. He started singing later. Like guitar was his
Yeah, he
thing.
just wanted to be a guitar player.
Yeah.
I had
So
his
imagine,
drummer, the drummer from the Sketches album, on the podcast, and he's become a friend. I think we're going to start playing
wow,
music. He lives nearby,
that's
and
amazing, dude.
he's says, yeah, that he he never wanted to sing. Just eventually, he was like, well, all these bands suck. I guess I'll sing.
Imagine that's just the kind of shit that that's yeah. Imagine just being like, yeah, all right, I'll give it a go.
That's like
And then
some
that comes
Jedi
out.
shit. It's like,
Yeah, it is. It's Jedi shit. That's fucking metachlorians off the fucking Richter scale.
yes.
Obi-Wan's gonna pop out of nowhere and be like, "You are the chosen one." You know. Wow,
What
that's
about
awesome, man.
more contemporary artists? Is there anyone that like that blows you away?
Um, what's contemporary? Something that post
Oh, fuck.
2000?
I don't. I'm 50, so as a 50-year-old, I think anything in the last 30 years is contemporary.
Yeah, I
In the
don't know,
last
man. I
15 or 20, I guess. I don't.
I really don't want to sound like a snobby jerk, because it's not about. I'm sure there is, but it just hasn't reached me.
Right.
Um, you know, I mean, I'm looking at my playlist here, but I mean, a lot of it's like I look at it and go, it's new, but it's probably like 20 years old or 10 years old.
Right.
Like Muse,
Sure.
um, Wolfpack,
Oh yeah,
it's pretty cool.
those guys are
Royal
great.
Blood, Active Child. I love Radiohead. Um, but I listen to a lot of old shit, man. Like I love Huey Lewis. I'm a big Huey
Awesome.
Lewis fan.
Uh,
And
he's great.
yeah. Um,
Who are those crazy? Where they're it's a Nordic metal band that's very
Meshuggah.
fuck man.
Yeah,
What the
Meshuggah
fuck is
are another
wrong with
band
those
that,
guys?
well, Meshuggah sort of became, once I heard Meshuggah, it's like I don't really need to listen to any other metal. Like, and metalheads are going to be like, you're a fuckwit for saying that. But
No, I
it's
don't
like,
think so.
they, like Frederick, the guitarist from Meshuggah. I mean, if I'm right about this, he's the kind of dude that's like, I just wanted to experiment with rhythm. And Thomas Hark is the drummer, who's like just they've all done it together and just created this fucking language that they can. I heard them and I'm like, this is what I wanted to hear in the cantina bar in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like these guys are from another fucking planet, and it's so different to American metal. It's inspired by, like, Metallica is like one of their, like, how the fuck do you listen to Metallica and become a sugar, like that? I guess you can see it like in tiny bits, but
Well, I
I
guess you have
mean,
to have a lead drummer.
yeah, yeah. Well, Thomas Hake, they're just wild, man. Like that's kind of like some kind of human. It's like they're telepathically connected. I mean, we've got a song on the album Culture War that I'm dreading kind of rehearsing. And it's, because it's that random, it's very Meshuggah inspired, but like the kind of memory and brain, like I want to put them all into CT scans and like, what's going on in your fucking head? But
Okay.
I love them.
So this is that's a good segue. So we should I don't know what your capacity for time. I don't even know what time it is there. What time is it there? Is it
It's 10.
tomorrow?
Yeah, it's tomorrow. It's when tomorrow, 10:46 in the morning.
Oh, good morning.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know what your capacity for time is. I usually try
I
to.
think I've got about 15 minutes.
Okay, then we should fucking haul
Okay.
balls.
All right.
Um, I want to. The new record is not just a record. It's a really ambitious collection of things coming at people. And can you let folks know about that, as well as How are you? How do you rehearse like once? Because I have to imagine you when you track your records, you're not tracking live, right? Like
Um,
very,
w-
that's
no, we don't. No,
overly
we don't. We
ambitious.
don't learn. Like I have to learn my own songs. Like I don't know how to play my shit. Like I
Right.
write. I pretty much sort of with the complex, heavy stuff. I'm kind of recording and um writing it at the same time almost, or I'll write it and then record it. Like I can't. I never could walk away and play the song, like which is kind of weird. Um, but in order to, you know, yeah. So I have to go back and learn it. I forget everything. Like it's just it's weird because because I spend so long on the production, like I'm thinking completely differently about that. So I have to go back and go, what did I do there? And then I'll that's when I'll change the tunings and stuff because I'll be like, okay, I did that, and then I went to here. So I to get to there, I need to move this string that way, and then it kind of it's a weird process.
You're using modelers? I have to assume you're using
Yeah,
modelers live.
yeah. I'm using the Shuriken Variax. I'm using the Variax Tech, and I'm
Amazing.
using a Helix rack, and I've just got the Cortex by Neural DSP. Because I've used a lot of Neural DSP plugins on the album. But yeah, it's
That's a
yeah,
necessity for performing the songs, I'm assuming. Do you guys
like
perform live to a click?
yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. The whole click, and the backing track thing for me is kind of my opportunity to play the production live.
right.
Um, because there are so many elements that we just can't bring a percussion ensemble and a fucking two keyboard players, and so we've got to, I mean, we never put guitars or lead vocals or anything like that on the track because that's where it becomes lame, but there is a lot of electronic elements and samples and sound design and stuff that we have, but we also break it up with the Russ using SPDSX sampler.
Yeah.
So we'll break up a lot of things there. So it's a mixture of the two, but yeah, definitely to a click. Um, so any kind of tempo changes mid song are tracked. So, because there are moments when we might have the chorus like 4 BPM faster.
Right.
So the click can sometimes be a little bit, but I mean, it's just once you know it, I mean, it sort of melts into the background a little bit.
That's fucking bananas. Okay. So,
Yeah, I think it's like it probably isn't as like I know how like dudes like Dave Grohl feel about there's two camps of thought. I just think the kind of music that we play, I have to do that. If I was gonna play like Jeff Buckley kind of music, I would not do that.
right.
Like anything that had a lot of tempo variance, and you wanted to almost have a free flowing. And I mean, I've watched him live. Like the dudes are, it's like a jazz band. Like they're fucking watching him. What is he gonna do? This is very much like where it's quite like engineered, architectural kind of shit. Um, yeah.
After I kill the recording, I'm going to tell you one of my most favorite stories that has ever occurred in my life, and it happened in Australia the first night I was there. Um, but will
Which
you can what's that?
which band were you with?
I was with Duff McKagan. We were playing the year that Metallica headlined the
Okay.
the tour. It was
Because
basically the
you play
tour.
with some motherfuckers.
I mean, I mostly play with like indie rock bands and stuff. I mean, I that's kind of you to say, but
Yeah, like I looked it up. I'm like, this dude, you've been around the block and played with some big bands. I imagine you've got some interesting mates.
I do. I'd love to. You know what? I would love to have you in a Couch Riffs performance video if you have the time and energy for it. It's a lot of fun. I actually had Parker, who was Jeff's last drummer, uh, on doing. They're all cover songs. They're live. We take a single pass, and
Yep.
I cut them together that way. So they move. You know, that's not no quantized shit. It's
Mm,
not a lip sync video. It's a live performance by each person. Anyway,
that's cool.
hey,
Yeah.
we could do something fun. Actually, I've been wanting to do a Bungle song forever, but they're all so fucking long. And
yeah.
my problem with media and everything is nobody pays attention anymore. No, like
Yeah.
people don't have the bandwidth to sit and watch something long form. So I'm trying to pick songs that are 5 minutes or less. But
Yeah.
will to completely go against everything I just said, you've made a computer game, a fucking graphic novel, record, book. Is there a fucking movie coming or an animated movie?
Well, I've written a screenplay, um, and that was a separate project.
You're a
Um,
maniac.
yeah, I'll tell you, I showed it to the original cinematographer for Mad Max, and he said it's too violent and weird. And I'm like, okay, that's a compliment coming from you. So it must be fucking full on. Because I mean, Mad Max, like, he was like riding on motorbikes and doing all sorts of shit to film like that you wouldn't be able to do now. So I take that as like that's my next when I get bandwidth, it's like I want to realize that. And the characters are loosely based around the personalities of the band. And it is pretty violent and weird. Um so yeah, but I don't know, man. I feel like maybe I've had some kind of breakdown that resulted in crazy productivity. Because yeah, I haven't really been that motivated. I think, because I've come out the other end, I've just been kind of chilling out and mowing the lawns and getting the whippersnipper cranking. And, you know, I haven't had that burning because I used to kind of be asleep and then just wake up upright and be straight onto the computer like a psycho. But now I'm decompressing a little bit because it's all done. So,
Right.
you know, maybe it will never come back. Maybe it will.
Was, you know, was all of this realized in the last 18 months because of the time that you were forced to be at home?
I'd probably extend that to maybe, more like 2 years. And then there are other elements that were in the pipeline for 5 years. And then the intent was established close to 14 years ago. So the chronology is staggered.
So the last bit of time just sort of afforded you the opportunity to actually dig in.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of COVID, I've always wanted to make a video game. Um, and I had the idea with the Long Way Home clip because I drew all the backgrounds because we shot it on green screen. And then I thought, well, I'll dive in because wouldn't it be cool if we just said play the game, play this, and we didn't tell anyone. We just went play this, and then we let people find, oh, this is a weird game, and then you get to the end and it unlocks if you collect enough of these brick phones, the old school Motorola phones from the 80s,
Right.
then you can unlock and the video clip opens, and that wouldn't that be fun to watch people discover that. Um, but it took me 8 months of full time. And I kind of hit a point where it was too late, like by the time I realized how much work it was too late. Like I had to just keep going. So I got addicted to caffeine, definitely. Like when I went off, I'm back on it again. But when I stopped drinking coffee, I was paralyzed for a week. It felt like someone was hooking my eye sockets and trying to rip my face off. Like I had this pain because I went cold turkey because I'm a all or nothing person.
You
And
trying to tell me that
yeah,
I would have never gathered.
but yeah, I'm back. I'm back on the wagon with the coffee.
Australia
I've
is
got
quite advanced. They sort of led the charge with the modern approach to coffee, at least
no,
cafe
they
wise.
yes that yeah they did, but I'm a heathen. Like I basically drink puddles. I'm not sophisticated. I just get instant. half hot water, half cold water. Like it's
So that you can
basically,
chug it.
yep, chug it down. I don't even think I like the taste of it. It's just kind of get it into me so I can go.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's I've got mates that are very, they get thermometers out and like do
That's me.
prayers and stuff. Yeah,
That's me. That's what I do during the day.
get it
Uh,
perfect. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it is, but there's an art. There
Science.
is an art.
It's called science.
Yeah, science. Yes, that is the art of coffee. Science.
What is the plan to present the music to the world in a live
Um,
sense? In the other sense, it'll be relatively conventional.
yeah, I mean, I guess it's about like the next mission is bringing more of the story content to the live show, which is a technological hurdle. Um, and it's a financial challenge. Um, so we're investigating ways to do that. Um,
Holograms.
Holograms would be great.
Fuck,
And I
that would
mean,
be amazing.
fuck yeah. There's some cool shit that's possible, but yeah, the budget's required. I mean, it's changing. Like,
New Year's Eve, 1985, I saw Ronnie James Dio slay a laser dragon on stage. And if they
that's
could do
fucking
that in
awesome.
85, I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, if anyone's listening who's in that world, like LED screens and lasers and holograms, I'm talk to me. But yeah, it's because I just know the conventional cost to do that stuff is big. Parkway Drive is a good example as an Aussie band who just don't hold back when it comes to live production. But it's a risk and it's harder when you're sort of like in the weird world that we're in, where I don't know what we are. Like, we're not, some people think we're niche and really kind of eclectic. Other people are like there's commercial potential. And so I'm a bit sort of, I think this album for me is like, it'll be where the dust settles. We'll kind of know who we are in the eyes of the public a bit more.
you've pursued a career like making art that is unconventional and challenging. My sister wouldn't like it
Mm.
because I use my sister as a measuring stick of almost everything. Um,
That must be inconvenient. Is she
uh,
very small? You just
no,
you,
I just mean
you,
like, you
you
know,
pick her up. How big's this? 3 sisters long.
give me one sister of beef at the butcher. No,
That's
just
awesome.
I measure sort of like cultural things
Yeah,
by what my sister would
it's good. That's
appreciate.
a good way to do it. You
Um,
know.
and but you're clearly all in, and it's a risk, and it's a risk
Yeah,
you've accepted in your life. Um, h-
I don't really have a choice.
how do you balance that in with your expectations of what you'll receive back, not necessarily financially,
Yeah.
although that's always a challenge. If you want to keep doing it, you have to be able to live.
Well,
But
I think that's a brilliant question because you're asking about the extrinsic return on something that's arguably intrinsically indulgent.
it's sorta, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's fair. I mean, it's something that runs through my head all the time. Um, I guess that the goal is to do what we do and have it reach enough people for it to work. That's the goal. So if we go for that goal and fail, you know, there it is. That's fine. But I couldn't compromise on the type of stuff that I wanted to do. Like I've had I've done set. was a session guitarist. Like I played with pop artists. It just was empty for me. I couldn't. I needed to sort of feel enjoyment doing it. Yeah. So I think it's kind of like fishing. It's like I'm trying a different type of bait. And if I catch a fish, brilliant. If I don't, I'll go home and go, all right, I gave it a shot. So I'm leaving it all up to fate in a way. And this whole release is really my best crack. Like this is kind of like if I can't make this work, then there's just not enough people that want it, you know. And I think I wouldn't have any regrets if it kind of that chapter closed, because I'll always make stuff. But you know, like I do have lofty ideas of what I mean. I'd love to be like Dan Harmon or something, you know, making like a crazy Rick and Morty thing and doing music and mixing it all up, and being able to sustain a proper living out of it would be really cool. So I guess I'm going, here's what I can do. Is it good enough? Like, you know, and the answer won't be, well, oh, if only the right people. It's like, I don't believe in that. I think if it takes off, it takes off because it's good. And if it's not good enough, it won't take off. So yeah.
I Wait a minute. Did you just say that if it's good enough, it'll take off, and if it's not, it won't?
Yeah, I believe
I,
that. Like, I mean, to
I don't.
take
I
off,
don't believe that.
I think take off is probably the thing that needs to be unpacked. Like, what does that mean? Because I mean, I recognize, you know, we've got a like credibility and you know, profile and respect, like to a certain degree, like not compared to a lot of artists, but it's more about the pragmatic sustainability of doing this. It will be self-determined. Like there's nothing I can do beyond what I've done unless I just completely start playing and doing completely different things. So that I think that's what I mean. I sort of have a fatalistic. I feel like I'm a kamikaze pilot. I'm just driving into the thing, and like if I fucking knock it out, good. But I'll, you know. So yeah, I don't know. Like that's why I am skeptical, because I'm like in the world of, you know, you just said it about your, you know, your your content. It's like, how do you get people to pay attention in the sea of shit that's just everywhere? Like, so I mean, this could be another one of those things. People might go, that was cool. Next,
Right.
you know, but what will happen is, like I'm watching I can't remember the name of the show, but it's a post-apocalyptic kind of futuristic show. And, you know, this guy's listening to music and they're talking about bands, and they were like, you know, people don't make music anymore, you know, and I thought that's
'Cause they're too busy
fucking,
trying to survive.
yeah. And I'm like, well, that might be part of what happens in the pendulum of life. Like a lot of artists might not ever become artists because it's just untenable. And music being paradoxically priceless and worthless at the same time means that the only people who make albums are like living at home with their parents with no responsibility. And, you know, some of them get through and they're super lucky and they have a career that lasts 2 weeks and then it's next. You know, it's not that kind of journey of a career that I grew up watching people have, you know,
Has
because the
it
world has changed.
has it occurred to you to start a religion, and then you could make full circle? You could be creating worship music in the vein of,
Dude,
like, you would have to make no changes. You would not
fucking
change
hell.
lanes at all. You just start a religion and you bring
Around it.
music full circle to be delivering your
Well,
religious.
that whole fucking worship thing that goes on blows my mind in America. Like people, I don't that doesn't, well, maybe it does happen. I'm just not exposed to it. But
Mega churches.
I yeah, the whole, like, people are like, I play this shit in church. I'm like, what fucking church is this? Like, you know, why are rock bands playing in church? I don't fully understand. But anyway, I have created a religion and it's called the Armament of Truth. And I use it on tour buses. It's this whole thing. There's rules, there's infractions, there's punishment, there's trials, there's judgment, and our
Wow.
highest power is an almond.
I'm into it.
Dude, we could talk forever because, like, I should. If you saw what evolved, it's happened over like maybe 8 tours or something. I've created this way to keep tour buses tidy, but it's evolved into this epic thing with
Started
full
with
on.
did it start with an almond on the desk on the
Someone left an
tabletop?
almond out, yeah, and then that became the like your sister. The almond was the metric. It's like if you leave anything out greater in size than an almond, you have to pay $10 into the kitty or do 30 burpees in 1 minute.
And I mean, an almond is smaller than anything that you could leave
It's
around
pretty
other
small.
than belly button lint.
Well, you could have a cluster of noodles that combined together is as big as an almond, and that's an infraction.
Wow.
And tour bus like fucking our tour bus drivers like love us because they're like the bus is as tidy when we get on as when we get off because everyone is, and it extends to load in and locking doors, and like if you get caught not locking the bus door,
Oh no,
that's an infraction.
that's
you
fucking
know
awful. You don't want to. Yeah, no, 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 no.
But then it goes into there's an emotional thing. Like you can be a CMF, which is a cheeky motherfucker. If you try and stitch someone up, like that's an infraction. If you call an infraction and you do it like you're getting pleasure out of it, and they can call you on it, that's an infraction. It's evolved, man.
Eh, you're running a tight ship. I love it.
Yeah, it's good. It gamifies every day. It means everyone's always at load in. There's
Yeah.
consequences. The stick. There's the stick again.
I was in the. It's weird, but I was in the Marine Corps, and
Really?
so yeah, no, and so there are things about being in the Marine Corps that are still with me. It's
Yeah.
been 30 years, right? Almost,
Mm.
but you know, valuable things that I value and that I don't want to let go. I fold
Yeah.
my t-shirts.
Yeah.
My, you know, my bunk is never a mess.
Same.
You
People
know,
people have asked me whether I've been in the military because I my bed is flat, and I'm like, no, I'm just psycho.
good for you.
So anyway,
I I'm gonna stop the recording.
yeah,
I want to tell you a quick couple things. But thank you so much for giving me so much time.
that's all right, man.
I had a great time talking with you.
I feel like we need to talk more, but anyway, another time.
So hold on.